start our interaction. Yeah. After knowing everyone's background, the common thing that we observed is HTML, CSS, JavaScript, right? HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Somewhat bootstrap. Right. My first concern is, can't we develop any website? Can't we develop a web page with these technologies? Why we are running behind the front end technologies like Angular, React, other etc. etc. Why? What is not there? Why you are running behind this technology?
About technologies helps to only develop the HTML screens. Like we
Uh,
can apply the CSS and the bootstrap styles, and JavaScript we can add the events. That's it, but we cannot do any API integrations in this technologies. So that we can choose as Angular or React.
API integration. API integration not possible. But we can go for Ajax, right?
Ajax.
Ajax. Say still the legacy. Okay, Ajax. So that also solved. So we can connect with the database with the Ajax. So what makes us to go for these technologies? With Ajax, we can accomplish this one.
I mean, a single page application, so we can develop the
Sorry,
single
single
page application.
per
SPA,
single page,
single
SPA.
page. Yeah.
Do we have multiple page MPA, multiple page application?
Mm, no.
In React, no, sir.
This one is correct. The main purpose of this front-end technologies are single page application. Correct. 100% correct. No doubt. So what is the difference between single page and multi-page application? Anyone can share their thoughts and their experience, because right, so definitely we'll go through the Google and search something right before we start learning. That is the trend we are following now. Everybody, even including me also. Nothing wrong.
Multiple pages, which means so we will import in a parent component. Yeah.
That is single page application.
Single page means we have the 4 tabs.
Mm-hmm.
So when page load,
Mm.
so every time page load, right?
Mm.
So we have the current page. So
Mm.
that page data only it will render.
Correct. So let me give you one example, then you'll get some idea. Wiki page, right? Simple. Wikipedia page, right?
Mm.
Yeah. Do you see on Wikipedia page, when we click the hyperlinks, I'm not talking about the external links, internal links. When we click the internal links, either we will be navigating in the same page only, right?
Yes.
Either middle, top of the page, or bottom of the end of the page, something like that. So do you feel that that is a single page, or it's a multiple page? Maximum content we will get in a single page. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Right? Am I correct, guys?
Yes, sir.
Right. So it doesn't mean that it is a single page application. It is a multiple application. But what happens, right? As someone said, a parent page acts as a placeholder to accommodate the response from the other pages, rather than fully navigating to the other page. Right. When you see any website normally developed with technologies like .NET or Java, when we navigate or when we click the hyperlink, we totally navigating to the new file. Am I correct?
Yes.
Right. We will see the address change in the URL also. Now, if I say if we are in the xyz.html, when we click the hyperlink, we will be navigating to yzx.html. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yes. So what happens? What is wrong with that? There is nothing wrong, but it impacts on the performance, because every time browser, when navigating to new page, it has to clear the resources allocated to that page. And so when we navigating to the new page, every time browser has to clear the current resources allocated to that page, the same resource it has to allocate it to the new page. Resources means maybe memory allocation, the database connections, any data something it holds to remember, those it has to clear, and the same resources has to allocate to the CPU process time to the new page. When you're frequently navigating here and there, every time it has to process the same. Sometimes browser feel burdened, overloaded, so browser get crash. That is general scenario we face sometimes with the website, right? Sometimes it takes time to load the page. Am I correct? Yeah, you can correct me if I uh, if I mention something wrong, you can absolutely correct me. There is nothing wrong. Yeah. So to avoid that, see, the issue is with clearing the current resources and allocating to the new screen. Why should, see, the final purpose to show the response, so let's display this response in the same current page rather than totally navigating to the page. That's where the single page implementation came into the picture. So though we have multiple pages, rather than physically navigating, let's send a request to the parent page. That parent page will pass the request to the child page, whatever the requester, take the response and rewrite here. So there will not be any physical redirections happens, which increases the performance or responsive time of our page. Do you agree with, guys?
Yes, sir.
Any other point anyone can add? They can add. Right. So that's why the single page applications came into the picture. That is one reason. Another one, when you take a normal website which implement with HTML, CSS, JavaScript, or any technology like .NET browser, the way it interact with the browser also impact the performance. Interacting. Also plays important role to give the to increase the performance of our application. Let me ask you one scenario. In generally, when we, let's say, we are sign upping into a new website, so before we sign up, we have to enter a lot of information, and then once we enter the information, when we click the submit button, somehow we missed one of the mandatory column. So what immediately it throws the message saying that the location was missing. So user has updated that location. Again, he clicked the submit button. Tell me, will again our code will validate the total form data, or will validate only a particular location?
Particular location.
Are you sure?
That means we can apply the validations, right?
Even though
So,
validation applies, first it start checking the conditions, right? Am I correct? It won't directly go to that condition, right?
yes,
Even though if we apply the if condition also, if or if else or switch or whatever,
yes.
right? And also it is not checking the condition. So yeah, click as you mentioned. Suppose we have that implementation in our code, will only that particular HTML place will get updated, or a total page will refresh to reflect that change? Obviously a total page will get refreshed, and then that particular update happens, right? Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Which is not required, because when it validates the first time, it validates all the data, then only it thrown an error. But second time, when we gave the correct value and then click the submit button, yeah, validation is okay. But what happens to reflect that new value, it again start loading the total page. Am I correct? Correct, guys? So which is not required usually, because for a small changes, see, for a simple pages, it doesn't matter. Let's say, consider the network related, animation related application. Right? Animation related controls, HTML controls are heavy. So browser has to remember the position of the position of our each HTML control. When after submit or refresh, the design should not change, right? So who will remember the width and length and position of that control? Our code won't do that. Browser has to take the responsibility, the data and it's a related HTML control related position. So every time when we, for a user, just clicking the submit button or refreshing the button is a small task, but for its browser, it's a heavy task, because it has to remember the each position of the control and the data associated, and it should replicate the same even after the refresh or submit. So when we are doing multiple times, obviously again it's a burden on the browser. After some time it's get crash. Let's say if we have a mechanism in our implementation, keep the earlier values and get the current values and compare whatever the wherever the changes detects, only if that particular part get updated, obviously we avoid unnecessary refresh and reinitializations. Am I correct, guys? So generally executing the 100 lines of code is different, executing the 10 lines of the code is different, because in 10 lines, yes, we will get a response in less span of time. Executing 100 lines of code, yeah, will generally will get more time. Here the same is happening for a single updates also. Our browser get to reinitiate the our total page, which is not required, and which makes our page heavy. Interacting with a browser frequently, it impacts the performance of your application, because for a small change it is reloading or reinitiating again the page. To avoid that, where exactly this technology is lack in that, to avoid that, yeah, especially React.js, by default, every time we execute our page, it takes the copy of the data. Whenever a update happens, request receives, it compare the earlier values and current values and see where exactly the which control has an update. Only that particular control it updates on the browser, so that we will avoid unnecessary initialization. In that way, a React page becomes lightweight. If all the pages are lightweight, then our application becomes lightweight. Do you agree with, guys?
Yes.
Yes. Because of that only, major of the market, major of the customers demand for the React.js. React.js day by day increasing more. It is not at all downfalling. Day by day, even though we have latest front-end technologies coming into the market and emerging, but still React.js has a high demand because of this feature. Because of this feature, we can avoid unnecessary reloads or initialization. The feature it follows internally is called as virtual DOM. Right. Because of this feature only, React has high demand. Any doubt so far? And also, the size of the application which we implement with React is very less. Size of application. That means total number of the files. How can we mention the size of the application? That means the volume of the application, number of the physical files it has. I don't know about the Java. Being a .NET professional, when I say a .NET page, it is a combination of backend code. That means C# or VB.NET, whatever. Right. Comma, HTML plus, sorry, plus HTML plus CSS, if CS is there, and JavaScript. What I personally feel, right, These four physical files are tightly coupled. Tightly coupled. If one of the file having the issue, I cannot run this file. I'm not able to run my application because they are tightly coupled. And also for a single page, our .NET has to combine these four files and compile it, execute it, and finally it produces only one output, one file. So for a single file, I should create the four physical files. Let's say if it is a complex application, imagine. So file size are, again, it comes to the memory management. To avoid that, in a React.js, we have a beauty, not only React.js, in a front-end technologies, any other front-end technologies, we can write HTML, CSS or Bootstrap, JavaScript, and server-side code in a single file or a different file based on the architecture. So, but we have that leverage in a React.js. So, when you implement the any application which is having 20 pages, let's say 20 into 4, 120 files has to be there in a .NET application. But when it comes to React.js, I can reduce half of the physical file size, right? Do you agree? Or any correction is there?
Yes, but can you explain tightly coupled? What is meant by tightly coupled?
Tightly coupled in the sense means, see, HTML calls some code from the backend code. See, let's say for example, if I click the some button, so that event, the event method, that event, call the codes method which is there in my backend. So for the, see, first, when user submit the data, JavaScript validate the data, and then through the Ajax or whatever the technology we follow, that passes the data to the backend code. Backend code means my server C#.NET code. That C#.NET again process that and passes to the database. So let's say for example, you have some syntax problem in my C# code, my .NET page won't be run because they are tightly coupled. Right? Tightly coupled means each one is dependent on other file. Okay, clear?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. So in an application size also we can reduce. This is the another one. And whatever the code blocks we have in React.js, they are loosely coupled. Loosely coupled means, let me take one scenario. In a React, we can also write the test cases for the component. I mean React component. It is not mandatory that we should write the test cases for every environment. And also, let's say, for example, if we create one file, test file for the React component, and if that test file has some issue, I can exclude, still I can able to run my React code because they are tightly coupled. There is no dependency. In a React front-end technology, dependence will be very less, so that if any of the dependent file has an issue, we can ignore and we can able to run the code. That is called as a loosely coupled. Clear? Right. Next one is what is there in a React? Yeah. In a React, we can write or implement HTML code in JavaScript file with a JavaScript extension. So that, let's say for example, you have a file extension. Let's say if I have something employee.js file. In this file, we can have some HTML content, but in general, it is not possible, right? Am I correct? Through the code, we can create the HTML, but we cannot write directly the HTML tags in the JavaScript. Am I correct? Guys, please respond.
Yes, yes.
Right. I want response from almost all of, from everyone. Right. So that is possible in React. And also, normally in a HTML, in normal HTML, are we able to write any JavaScript related code? Let's say, for example, here, let's say, for example, a div tag. I'm not talking about the latest JavaScript. I'm talking about the legacy JavaScript. Is it possible to write code something like this? Any JavaScript related code in a HTML block?
No.
No. Yes.
No.
But yeah, good.
No, sir.
That possible in a React. We can write JavaScript code in HTML block. What is the benefit, right? What is the benefit? Yeah. See, as a good developer, as a good UI designer, try to avoid the maximum number of calls, whether it is an internal call, whether it is an external call, even though from HTML to JavaScript or JavaScript to HTML, though the code implementations are in the same file, maximum we should try to avoid that calls. See, let's say take a simple scenario. Imagine, let's take, I have an array of data. We want to iterate the data and do some mathematical calculation on each item of the array. In generally, we have some button and then we write one function. Inside that function, we write for loop with the help of for each or for loop, whatever there, we iterate and we do the calculation in a JavaScript. So again, HTML to JavaScript, JavaScript to HTML. If I have a leverage where I can iterate my data in the HTML itself, I should avoid the call to the JavaScript, right? Correct? I can iterate the data in the HTML itself and I can do whatever I want, so that I can avoid a call to a JavaScript, which impacts on the responsive type for your of your page. So that is possible in the React.js. Got it? And also, not only that, we can evaluate the small mathematical calculation. In normal HTML, when we write 1 plus 1, tell me what it displays. Guys, anyone, what it displays if I write 1 plus 1 in HTML? 2 or anything?
Just it will show the 1 plus 1
1 plus 1. It treats as a string and it displays. But in
string.
yeah, but in React.js or an Angular, whatever framework, with the expression evaluators, we can even evaluate the mathematical expression. That is possible. 1 plus 1, now it evaluates 1 plus 1, 2, and display the, add the two numbers and display the 2. But in HTML, it is not possible. We cannot have evaluation in HTML itself. Again, we have to take the help of JavaScript code. Any doubts so far?
No, sir.
Right. So this also makes one feature for the React.js. Right. Next one. So the way we implement this, right, in a JavaScript file, we write the HTML, and HTML file, we write the JavaScript code. The process, simply we call it as a JS6 or TS6. JavaScript extension or TypeScript extensions, where we combine the JavaScript and HTML together and finally produces the HTML output. That is called as a JSX and TSX. Because why I mentioned the TSX, right? TypeScript, because React only has the provision to accept the development in JavaScript as well as the TypeScript. It's based on the team technical skills as well as the architect decides. Each and everyone has, JS has its own set of pros and cons, and TypeScript also has its own set of pros and cons. So since I'm basically from .NET and object oriented background, I can take the TypeScript. Else I'm a basic developer which has only JavaScript knowledge. I can go for JavaScript. Anything is fine. Each process has its own set of pros and cons, as I mentioned earlier. Clear? All right. Next one is component-based architecture. Every technology, we all almost talks in terms of the component. Guys, the word is new, but the concept is there in C++ and any other backend code. Components might be a class or functions. Only React has this provision, functional component, class component. But if you take Angular, we will have only class component. What is a component? I can say simply component is nothing but a class and function, which has a specific set of code to produce this specific set of response. Why we need this? Simply, right? We cannot write the whole application code in the same file. So we divide the blocks and we name either class nor a function. So it is easy for the developer to maintain and the debug. If you keep everything in the single file, it is very difficult for us to debug and maintain. Do you agree?
Yes.
Right. That's why we divide our whole business functionalities into small box. We call it as a components or classes. Next one. Another main feature of the React, this all, yeah, whatever the features we are discussing, right? These all are main, because before we choose the React.js, we should think whether this is suitable for our application or not. So what kind of application we go for the React.js? It is, guys, in the market, it is not at all a rule that, this technology I should do, go with for this application. No. Based on the usage of your application and the complexity of the application, the way your application process the request and response, based on that, we should go for it, right? Next one is single one-way data flow. One-way data flow. Right. What is this? Yeah, React always allows to flow the data from parent component to child component always, and do that in a read-only mode, protected mode, because to secure the parent data, it always sends into a read-only mode. So child can receive the data and it can allocate to its local variable and do whatever. But if it is trying to directly manipulate the parent data, whatever it receives, immediately React throws an error message that you are not allowed to change it since it is a protected. But you may ask me the question, how can I manipulate the data if I want? Have it in a local object and do it. So in that way, your main data will be secured and you will have your own data, and vice versa, right? Parents send the data to the child, fine, that's fine. If parent changes that data which is transferred to the child, how a child can know that? Yeah, with the React lifecycle methods, so we will make parent and child always in the sync. Obviously, right? One way means I cannot wait for your response. I can send the data because my data is protected. I can start executing my code. So one way communication is always fastest communication when it comes when compared with the two-way communication. Here ours is two-way communication. I deliver the content. I'm waiting for the response and then proceed my next content. But if it is a one way, I don't bother about the response about from you. I start pumping my data and I'm confident that my content won't be changed. So why should I worry? That is there in a React framework. Sorry, library. Any doubts, guys? So far, we discussed the future best part of the React.js. But basically, what is React.js? React.js is a JavaScript library. JavaScript library. Means what is that? It is a combination of JavaScript plus new features which is not there. Features which is not there. Library. Anybody tell us what is library? We have another keyword, right? We keep on here. Framework. I think maybe guys which are came from Angular background, they can answer this one. Library versus framework.
Framework means we have the default methods in Angular, like validators and form group and form builder. So inbuilt methods we have. That is the
Hmm.
framework.
Hmm.
And library, there is no, just we can use the classes and methods from JavaScript.
Even in a framework also we use classes,
Yes, yes,
right?
we can. Yes, yes, we can. But so in framework, we have the inbuilt methods. So for validation and farm
Mm,
group and farm builder and validation part.
In
and
React JS
authentication
also we
can
have,
active, can deactive, authorization.
no, in React also with the formic or on normal HTML forms, we can have inbuilt validations, right? Min length, max length. Normal HTML form it
Yes, yes,
has.
yes. In
So
HTML we can, but in TypeScript for
no,
framework.
let's take up JavaScript. TypeScript, let's forget about it. JavaScript.
Okay. Yes, in JavaScript also we have the max length and
Huh,
min length.
I tell you. Library, general meaning, not talking about the technical terms. In general, books library, right? We'll go and pick up the book, whatever we need. We just verify it. And then if it is usable, we start using that, right? Correct? We should not worry about the how the book was written, how the book was printing. We should not. So the solution is available. We'll go through it if required. Otherwise, if that is not at all suitable, we start implementing from the scratch. Library means we'll have a ready-made solutions, right? So framework contain the libraries. Framework means framework. We have to work in the limitations, right? Uh, Tell me, when you issue a command in Angular to create the Angular page, what are the files it generates for us? Anybody from the Angular background?
Sorry.
Yeah, when you issue the command to create the Angular file, Angular page, what are the files that gets created for us?
4 files:
Okay, one is
HTML, CSS, spec.ts,
testing
and
file.
TypeScript file. Yeah, and TypeScript file.
Testing file plus TypeScript
Plus
file.
TypeScript file.
TypeScript. It is not mandatory that every component we write the CSS and testing, right?
Yes.
Will Angular ask us whether you need a testing file or CSS? It just created it.
If it is required, we can create.
No. Through the ng command, I'm asking.
Yes, ng command by default it will give the four files.
Later, if we want, we can continue. Otherwise, we will manually delete, right?
Yes. Yes.
So that is framework. We will have very less option to decide the process. Clear?
Yes.
But when it comes to React, if I want HTML as a separate file, I can create. If I want a testing file, I can create. And if the integration part has to taken care by the developer. But in Angular, it takes care of maximum things done for us in a framework. But library, it is not. Almost the flow and the process, the way it designed, almost under the developer control. Yeah. So in a React, the infrastructure implementation will has to take care by the developer. The framework will take care of that. General example, creating the pages. In Angular, it won't ask whether we need CSS or testing. It just create the page. But in React, it's developers that will be in the developer's hand. Whether we need CSS, whether we need testing file. If we need, we'll create the file manually, and then after we integrate that. Got it, guys?
Yes.
Right. Final one. CSR versus SSR. Client side rendering and server side rendering. Any idea, guys?
Server side means we can check the database validation.
Somewhat correct. Client side means?
Internet, just before we clicking the any event, before, so we can validate. So for example, we have the form. Finally, we can submit, right? So we can without enter the values, we can click the submit button. So we can make any validation part. So before that, we can do in JavaScript.
See, that validations happens only after our page fully loaded on the browser. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yes. Rendering, I'm not talking about the CSR means client side rendering. SSR means it's talking about the render. That means, so we are talking about the part after rendered. So this is about the rendering, how it renders. Yes. Client side rendering. Let me take one thing. Yeah, simple example. Client side rendering means browser has to, well, when we start executing our application, especially in the development mode, so you see, right, when we run the application, On the browser, we see some processing, right? It takes some time. Still, yeah, we receive some black white page. So once it process everything, then only we see the design. So what happens? The browser has to initialize your JavaScript files. Browser has to initialize your CSS file. Browser has to initialize your TypeScript or whatever. So browser has to take responsibility to initialize your resources and import it on the browser, and after only it able to render the page. So it takes some time. Am I correct?
Yes.
Right. Compilation, conversion, everything will take care of the uh, take care by the browser. That is called as a client side rendering. So it will take some time. Server side rendering, right? So whatever we deploy on the servers and a production or develop, we pre-compile and we directly deploy. That means directly from the server, I receive the HTML file. Browser won't initialize something. So directly HTML page we receive from the server, HTML browser has to display it. No initialization, no conversion, no transfer, everything. Because we do all the pre-conversions and finally the final files only we deploy in the server. That is called as a server side. The difference that is rendering. And let's say, for example, while let's say when we open a browser and there is no internet connection, we will see a blank page, right? Am I correct? White page. So that means during the client side rendering, if the dependency resources are not there, we see the empty page. But when it comes to server side, for let's say database is down, but still we able to see the design of our applications. Am I correct? Without any blank page, at least we able to see the design of our place. So that is called as a server side rendering. React supports both server side and client side rendering. To make the server side rendering more better, we go for Next.js. So Next.js makes React pages prominently or perfectly work on the server side. So React supports both server side and client side. In generally, we go for server side only because we don't want make a user get irritated, right? When something is not available, at least he should see the design of the page, and then okay, he can have some idea. He can get some idea. Okay, this control will display this, something like that. So almost we go for the server side rendering only. Clear, guys? The major benefit of the React is, right, it can just use as HTML. It is not mandated that if your site, if our website is a static website and does not have a database interaction, we can just use React.js like a HTML. But when we have a complete dynamic website, then only we have to build infrastructure to interacting with web APIs and then databases. The disadvantage is building infrastructure is in developer's hand. Disadvantage. Building infra will take care by the developer at most. That is only the disadvantages we have in a React. Guys, any doubts so far? Right. Now we have seen what is React.js. Then our next, and we have also seen the why React.js. Then the final question is when. So 3 Ws. Anything, even in a personal life or in a technology, we should always think about the 3 Ws. One is, what is that? Why is that? When to use that? Right. So we have gone through the what and why, and then when. What kind of an applications we go for React? Any application which is data centric, network centric, any more network, animation. Okay. Let's say take tracking application. So for the tracking applications, the devices, whatever the vehicles, reports their longitude, latitude, every fraction of seconds. So for 1 hour, if you take, will receive lots of huge amount of the data from the vehicles. So obviously, when we open a tracking, only that vehicle part only we see the change. The rest of the maps will remain same. That means only reflected part, updated part has to be reflected on the view. Those kind of applications we go for React, because React compares the earlier data and current data, only update the HTML which has an effect, which has an update. So those kind of data which has more data to process and which has more refreshes and which has more navigations. So those kind of applications we go for React. And also animations, right? So if you have a 10 animation controls, when one animation control has some update, rather than refreshing every animation control, only that particular animation control part will be reflected. For those kind of applications, we go for React. That means which is application is a complex and then which has more data to process or frequent refreshes, then we go for React.js main. So and where the performance is the main criteria, then we go for React.js. When we go for other, which has very less amount data and which has very less amount of navigation, those kind of applications, we go for other technologies like user module, account module, those kind of modules, we go for Angular or whatever, because see, we will not get daily customers, right? New accounts, right? And we will not get lakhs of users under a single account, right? So very less, per a week or 2 weeks, per a month or something, every 6 months we get 10 accounts, something like this, which has very less amount of data to process. We go for other technologies. But the main purpose of React is to application which has a complex as well as frequent updates. Yeah. If someone comes and asks, which technology we go, we should understand the behavior of the application, and then we can adopt the technology. Any doubts, guys, so far? That's why React daily, growing daily by day basis. Thanks everyone joining and for your time.